everybody, and welcome to the Josie Show. My name is Josie, and I'm the Redheaded Libertarian. My guest today is the former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Welcome, Marjorie.
Hi, Josie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Can you tell, for anybody who's been living under a rock, who you are and what you do, what you did?
I'm former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. I served in Congress for 5 years representing Georgia's 14th District.
Excellent. Well, I'm so happy to have you here today. So we're going to do an interview. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we're going to take some pre-screened questions from the audience. After that my production assistant, my beautiful production assistant, Olivia, is going to read off. Olivia, why don't you say hello?
Hi.
All right, so we'll get started. So you entered Congress in 2021, and you were this fierce outsider, and you were a very vocal Trump ally. And you resigned in early 2026 after some public clashes with the administration over issues like the Epstein files and these eternal wars. Looking back, do you see your biggest accomplishments? What do you see as your biggest accomplishments in Washington? And what disillusioned you most about the system and your own party?
Oh, boy, that's a big question. Some of my biggest legislative accomplishments are, it was my articles of impeachment that passed the House impeaching Biden's Secretary of Homeland, Alejandro Mayorkas. Those were my articles of impeachment, and I had to fight Speaker Johnson to get those to the floor for a vote. And how I got them there is I pushed a privilege resolution and forced the vote on my articles of impeachment. And there were 8 Republicans that voted no. And it was a huge embarrassment to Mike Johnson and those 8 Republicans actually voting no, impeaching President Biden's Secretary of Homeland, Alejandro Mayorkas, that was actually carrying on and enabling the border invasion into the United States of America at that time. And so I told Speaker Johnson that if he did not take my articles of impeachment seriously, that I would force a privilege resolution vote on my articles of impeachment every single week. I would do it every single week until we impeached Mayorkas. And he knew my threat was real, and I had the legislation ready to go to reintroduce the privilege resolution again. And so then they assigned my articles of impeachment to the Homeland Committee, which I served on, and we worked those articles of impeachment through Homeland, passed them on the House floor, and we carried them over to the Senate, where unfortunately, of course, they failed. Another very important legislative accomplishment that I achieved happened actually on my last day of Congress. And unfortunately, not enough people know about this, but my bill to make it a felony to trans anybody under the age of 18, pushing gender ideology on them, hormones, crazy, awful surgeries like mastectomies, castration for any child under the age of 18. My bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act, makes it a felony to do so. Well, that bill actually passed the House on my last day of Congress. And here's what's interesting. 4 Republicans voted no. And because of those 4 Republicans voting no, my bill would have failed. However, 3 Democrats voted yes. And because those 3 Democrats voted yes, my bill actually passed the House, where it is sitting over in the Senate collecting dust. And the Republican-controlled Senate, who all claimed they were against transing children, have done nothing with my bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act. It's really interesting. Protect Children's Innocence Act was also a very important bill to our Vice President, J.D. Vance, who was the Senate co-sponsor when he served in the Senate before he was elected to be Vice President. So this is a bill that has massive support within the GOP, also by the Vice President, and it's also a direct reflection of President Trump's executive order that also makes it a felony to trans anyone under the age of 18. So this could be a giant win for the GOP going into the midterms, but they're doing nothing with it. It's sitting over there in the Senate. And I'll have to add one more thing to this little story. Mike Lawler, who President Trump endorsed and campaigned for in New York, is one of the Republicans that voted no in the House to my bill, voted no, he was protecting transing children, which the irony of that is so massive because he called me a traitor. Trump called me a traitor for releasing the Epstein files, yet he fully endorses and supports and campaigns for Mike Lawler, who voted no to Protect Children's Innocence Act, one of Trump's own executive orders, and a very important huge agenda item in his 2024 campaign. So these are all the little stories that people don't hear about when they're brainwashed on Fox News every single day. But these are the real stories that happen, and they're all factual. You can research every single bit of this. So those are just two examples of my biggest legislative accomplishments. But honestly, Josie, there's so much more. That's such a deep question. But I'll just pause right there.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot. And I do want to go back to something that you said. Mayorkas, a lot of people don't know this. He was in charge of the children, the unaccompanied minors.
That's
so
right.
He lost 400,000 children.
Yes.
He lost
them.
Yes. Like this man lost 400,000 children. Is he like, I could be wrong. Is he up for governor in California right now?
I don't know if he ran for governor in California.
I remember hearing he was going to do that and being like, "Are you kidding me?" So I don't know if somebody knows, you can drop that in the comments.
Yeah,
I've been following that. I think he's a monster. I believe he belongs in jail or worse for the rest of his life.
He does, and we should point out that the Trump administration and their DOJ is not doing anything. They're not prosecuting him, not filing charges against him for not only close to 400,000 children going missing, but also all the crimes against Americans, that people that were injured and people that were killed during the time that he was Secretary of Homeland.
Yeah, just a monster. And your Protect Children Innocent Act is sitting in the Senate with the SAVE Act and all the other stuff that they claim that they really love and that America voted for. It really feels like the Senate is there to maintain the status quo. When it's a Republican majority and when the Democrats are in charge, they push through all of the stuff that breaks down our government. Doesn't it feel that way?
Oh, no, it's 100. It doesn't just feel that way. It is that way. I'll tell you the dirty little secret about the Senate is they all bemoan and cry about how they can't pass bills because of the filibuster and the 60 vote rule. Well, that is a self-imposed rule that they can get rid of at any time. And they do waive the rule to get through President Trump's nominees when it comes down to actually having to get it done. So they can waive that rule at any time. It's a self-imposed rule. It's total bullshit. And it's a complete lie. They have the majority in the Senate. The American people gave them the majority. They can pass the Save America Act. That's a bill that I actually voted for. They could pass Protect Children's Innocence Act. They could do a lot of things in the Senate. They just choose not to. So no one should actually believe them when they are like, oh, the filibuster. It's all a lie. And so it doesn't just feel that way, Josie. It really is that way.
Yeah. I had Senator Mike Lee on my show to talk about the SAVE Act, and he was saying that there's a filibuster, and then he calls it the zombie filibuster. So they're trying to say that they have to abolish the filibuster to have a conversation. It's like, no, the filibuster is talking, but you guys made up, like, on top of this first filibuster rule that you self-imposed, you made up the fact that you just don't have to talk about it, and that's a filibuster, and that's not the way that it is there. A filibuster is supposed to be debating nonstop for 60 days or whatever it is. And it's not doing that. And they're lying to the American public about it.
They are flat out lying to the American people. These senators literally choose to do nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they get reelected like Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. So
that guy, I'm like, what are the chances of South Carolina not screwing this up? All they have to do is not screw this up, and they screwed it up, So
well, when you talk about the generations, the baby boomers will literally screw everything up because they are spoon-fed straight up propaganda on Fox News pretty much every day.
And they're the ones who show up to the primaries, which
they are. They're
leading the.
dedicated to voting. They vote. Yep.
Oh my goodness, I know. I remember that. I remember like even going with my grandmother. She's silent generation, but I'd go
Hmm.
with her and it'd be like just this arbitrary vote about some local election, and she'd have to go at Tuesday morning,
Yep.
be the first one there. So I totally
Yep.
understand that. But speaking of boomers being the only ones who vote in primaries, you've been one of the strongest congressional supporters of our friend, Representative Thomas Massie.
Yes.
And this puts you at odds, of course, with GOP leadership. It put me at odds with literally everybody who's followed me for years. Like, why
Hmm.
did you change, Josie? And I'm like, um, like this Overton window has shifted so far. So what?
Right.
It's so what draws you to Thomas Massie's approach, and why do you believe that standing with independent-minded conservatives like him is more important than party unity?
Well, actually, I'm my voting record is very similar to his, so I'm not drawn to him. I am similar to him. I when I came into Congress, I wasn't a party person. When I ran for Congress, I had never been to a county GOP meeting literally until I showed up to one and introduced myself and said I was running for Congress. So I didn't come up through the inside. I never served in any state politics in any way or was an office holder. I just wasn't. I literally was an outsider. And I've always hated the Republican Party because I feel like they lie to us all the time. They promise one thing on the campaign trail, and then when they get reelected, they literally lie to us and turn their backs and don't do what they promise us. So when I went into Congress, that's the member of Congress I was. I was trying to hold my own party accountable to do the right thing that they always claim that they're going to do. And I see so much corruption in Congress. The corruption is outrageous. There's a million examples, like we discussed the filibuster in the Senate. The House works the same way. They have stupid rules and stupid procedures, and everything is honestly designed to fail the American people, to build more debt, to frustrate the American people, and not accomplish anything new. And so Thomas Massie was basically my best friend in the House. He was my ally on so many issues, and he has been a great member of Congress representing Kentucky's 4th district. And I am still absolutely furious about what they did to him, how they treated him, and how they lied about him. One of the campaign ads that they created against Thomas Massie was that completely AI generated ad with Ilhan Omar and AOC, and that ad played on television across his district and on the internet across his district, targeting his district. And campaign money, well, Miriam Adelson money, basically, was used to pay for that ad, but it broke the law. That ad literally broke the Take It Down Act. That Thomas this is a great story. I voted for that bill. Thomas actually voted against it. And yeah, and here's what's really, and he voted against it on a free speech issue.
Mhm.
And this is this was Melania's bill that she was pushing to get passed because AI has been used against her. It's used against me all the time. Then it was used against Thomas Massie. So we get that bill passed. Thomas votes against it on a free speech issue. President Trump signs it into law. So it becomes law under the Trump administration. And then it was President Trump himself and his billionaire Israel donors and Chris LaCivita, his campaign consultant. They create this ad that breaks the law. It breaks the law, and they create this ad attacking Thomas Massie. And then the irony is Thomas Massie was the one that voted against it, giving them the free speech to do such a thing to him. And I think that's such an incredible story because it speaks to liberty and freedoms that Thomas always his voting record is there for. So I still support the law, and under that law, well, you know who would be prosecuted? The very people that lied about Thomas Massie. And but no, Thomas Massie's great. He's one of the best members of Congress, I think, in United States history. And it is honestly a travesty what happened.
It's what his whole thing was. I don't agree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. And he
Yeah.
has consistently.
Yes.
And he is very, the parallels between him and John Hancock and Thomas Jefferson are
Mm-hmm.
haunting,
Mm-hmm.
hauntingly similar. I mean, when it comes to him and Thomas Jefferson, they're both inventors. They're both excellent orators.
Yep.
They're both a little bit shy. They both have like a background in farming. I mean, just and
Mm-hmm.
then just their beliefs in general. And
Yep.
so just absolute bravery. And when it comes to political parties, George Washington warned in his farewell address, like he did with foreign entanglements and permanent alliances, that those were going to be a bad thing. And we should probably, beware of those. But nobody listens to George Washington. Who the hell listens?
Right. Only our first president. I have to say, I totally agree with George Washington. That's where I am today.
Mhm.
Is I'm so sick of the two political parties and the team jerseys and how everybody acts like it's the Super Bowl on every issue. And I've totally taken my party jersey off. I am straight down the middle, just for America, for Americans. What's good for us? What's good for the future generations? And I think that's where a lot of people are going now.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of taking your party jersey off, the Epstein
Mhm.
files became a major flashpoint for you. Why was releasing them so essential? And what does the resistance to full transparency say about the power structure in Washington, regardless of the party?
Oh my gosh, what a fight. Well, this was a campaign promise, and this was talked about for years. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that just cropped up. I mean, the Democrats think it just cropped up in 2025. To them, it was a brand new issue that they latched onto and all of a sudden pretended like they cared about. That was one of the funniest things that I'd ever seen. Like all of a sudden, the Democrats who no longer hold power are like, yeah, release the Epstein files. That was hysterical. But no, this was, I mean, most people know, most regular Americans know that releasing the Epstein files was something that everybody always wanted. And it was taking down this class of people that were rich and powerful and elite, that were pedophiles and rapists and did all kinds of horrible things. And so when it came time for us to get to do that, when we finally had the House, Senate, and the White House, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It was, to me, it was like, this is number one of the easiest things we can do. What was shocking to me is that the president fought us so hard on it, to the point where he basically brought on a reign of terror over the House and the Senate. And he told Johnson and Thune, do not allow that resolution to get a vote and to block it at any means possible. He also told the DOJ and the FBI to block releasing the files. And this was a crisis in the White House and a crisis in the GOP overall. And then to me, I was like, no, we're fighting for this. I don't care who I have to fight for it. And so I signed the discharge petition. Thomas Massie, myself, Nancy Mason, Lauren Boebert, we were the only four Republicans that had to sign the discharge petition with the Democrats, who all of a sudden found out this was a big issue. And so we received many threats and were told to take our names off the discharge petition, to the point where I had a very bad phone call with the president. I was in my office in the Rayburn building. He was at the White House, and this phone call came, and he was telling me to take my name off the discharge petition and why it was so important. And he told me it was because his friends would get hurt if the files were released. And that was shook me, and I couldn't believe it. And he said these were people I know, people at Mar-a-Lago, people in Palm Beach. And I just said, I don't care who they are. I honestly don't care who they are. These are rapists, these are pedophiles. This should not be covered up simply because they're your friends. And so that's where we broke. Everything broke between the president and I. And I kept my name on the discharge petition, and we finally went back into session after Johnson keeping the House shut down for 8 weeks because of that discharge petition. That's why the House was shut down. The government was shut down, but there was no reason for the House of Representatives to be shut down. We could have kept on, carried on with business. But when we passed the resolution through the House and it passed through the Senate, that's when the president put out his Truth Social calling me a traitor. And after that, I got death threats, many death threats. My house, we had the pizza doxing and swatting. Many death threats were coming in, but there were some very serious death threats that came in on my son, Derek, and I sent them. It wasn't the ones on me I cared about. It was the one on my son. And I sent those to Susie Wiles, James Blair, Vice President Vance, Kash Patel, and I sent them to the president, texted the images of them. And I told him, I said, when it comes to our children, no political disagreement should ever bring death threats on our children. And he told me that I deserved it and that it was my fault. And that's what the president said to me. And I can tell you right now, I don't care. There's no way I could ever support that man after that. And it wasn't me that changed, Josie. I am still solid on every single issue I've always been solid on. I didn't turn into a Democrat or a liberal. I just refuse to support a man that's going to cover up for pedophiles and rapists and says that I deserve it if my son were to get killed. And this happened literally less than 2 months after Charlie Kirk was assassinated on live television in front of all of us. So I took that very seriously. But here was the other part. I had no support from any Republican. The GOP that I had donated millions of dollars to while I was in Congress, all these Republicans that I had endorsed and campaigned for to help get elected, none of them publicly spoke for me, and none of them defended me to the president. So when it comes to the Republican Party, I'm totally done with the Republican Party. And that's why I say I'm straight down the middle for America and Americans. But I think the party needs to burn to the ground because I've seen them lie way too many times. And I think on many issues, they're traitors.
I'm so sorry that happened to you and your son.
Thank
From
you.
the bottom of my heart, I have children. I know how nasty people can be when it comes to wanting to hurt you. They go through your children.
Yep.
It is no matter what, no matter how tough we are as mothers. That's our Achilles heel.
Oh yeah, that's it right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I do appreciate you fighting to get those released. I did a panel event with Walk Away and Brandon Straka.
Oh, and, yeah.
Yes.
I saw part of it. You did a great job.
Thank you. So one of the arguments was that the Epstein files weren't a big deal. So the MAGA side feels that they were defending Jeffrey Epstein at one point. One of the people on that side, that's how far it's fallen to where America First is saying, you know, we saw the videos, we saw the pictures, we saw the emails that were talking about the ages of, like, oh, we're going to have some 11-year-olds there. There's going to be some that are less than 1. You know, oh, here's the ages of my kids that are coming to the island. Like, why is any of that important? But we saw all of this. And then we have them saying, oh, no. And then one of the people on that was actually almost blaming the girls that he was, the girls that he was bringing to his island during his first charge, saying that they were complicit with it. I'm like, well, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm like, a trafficked child can't consent. This is a trafficked child. It doesn't matter what the age of consent is, 15 or 16 or 17. A trafficked child cannot consent in that kind
That's right.
That kind of like blew that argument dead. But it's just the idea that's like what I was saying about the Overton window. That's how far it shifted, is defending Jeffrey Epstein now. It's like, okay,
that's shocking.
Why is nobody calling to have Ghislaine out of prison? Like, if he's innocent, then she's innocent, right? Like,
right.
Like, there's no logical consistency. And it's a lot like the left in that we have a set of values, a grounded moral compass. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the left, it's whatever moves us closer to communism. And in this case, it's whatever moves us closer to, I don't even want to know their end goal. But it's not, it changes with the wind. It changes with the mood of the president, and it's just alarming to me.
Well, you know what that is it's a cult. And so for these MAGA influencers and, many of the MAGA influencers and consultants, for many of them, they don't want to lose their invites to Mar-a-Lago or their invites to the parties or their invites maybe even to the White House. They don't want to lose their access. And that is oftentimes why so many of them are willing to just behave like they're a member of a cult and go so far as to defending Epstein and pedophilia and rape, so that they don't lose that access. And that's what is absolutely repulsive. They're also paid. A bunch of them are paid by the consultants, MAGA Inc., and different PACs. They're also paid by Israel. They're paid a lot of money through Israel. And so that's why many of them will literally defend a rapist, defend a pedophile in the Epstein network, and go that far just so they don't lose favor. And that's the part that's really gross. And as well as different people on the internet, I'm always shocked that they're terrified to be called a panikin. And so they'll literally let go of all their values, things that they said were the most important things in the world 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's no big deal. We'll support any war around the world. We'll bomb any country. We'll pay for it. Inflation is just fine. High gas prices are just fine. And Jeffrey Epstein, oh, he was a good dude, just to make sure that they're not called a panikin. So good for you, Josie, for fighting back on that.
I don't even care about the name calling at this point. Like, call me whatever you want. Like, I know who I am better than anybody. So if you want to call me a name, I'm going to lean into that name.
That's
we're
right.
Panicking into like the winning side here. If that's what y'all want to do. So was there ever a time when party loyalty conflicted with what you believed in? I believe there has been, and what was right for your constituents. And if so, how did you decide to put your conscience first?
Yeah, so we'll move Epstein to the side because we discussed that one. This was on the 10-year moratorium on AI and data centers, for states to be able to make laws and regulations on AI and data centers and big tech. And that was another place where I fought with the president and the White House directly. Is I said, there is no way I'm voting for the big beautiful bill if you guys don't take that out. And so that was an area, because that's a big deal. It was a big deal in my district. It's a big deal. It's a big deal in the state of Georgia. It's a big deal all over the country. And states absolutely have to maintain their independence and their right to make regulations and laws, especially when it pertains to such an emerging industry that has so much support from the president, because they're donors, really. They're some of his biggest donors. And so that was an area where I took a stand and had to fight again with the White House. That one actually happened before the fight on the Epstein files. So I think that was I had a couple of strike 1, 2, and 3s before I got to the Epstein files. But I don't care. It's an important issue. By the way, for your viewers, that one is going to come back. Something to watch for is they're working on legislation again to have a federal regulatory framework over AI and data centers and big tech. And those bills are actually being worked around the GOP conference right now. My understanding is there will be some sort of moratorium. I think it's going to be reduced down to a 3-year moratorium, and still that should be stopped. I mean, that should be another big fight. No moratorium on state rights whatsoever.
Oh my God. So did you notice that all of a sudden the climate panic all vanished? And that's not even a woke thing or what they're getting paid for. It's like with the data centers, with these resource sucking data centers, nobody cares about climate anymore. Like, it's strange how that lined up, because these people are largely paid, but the people who are paying them benefit from these AI resource sucking centers.
Oh yeah, of course. Water, energy.
Oh, water.
It's shocking.
And the sound that they omit, and this is what gets me, just from, like, I was a neuromuscular therapist before I did it.
Okay.
But what gets me from a health perspective is these things emit this noise, this sound, like
Hmm.
this buzzing sound, and it's so loud. And I wonder, a lot of frequencies can hurt the human body. They can hurt the birds. They can, and
Yeah,
we just don't know enough about these. And it's loud. If anybody's ever been around one of these, it sounds like otherworldly and demonic. It doesn't
it's
sound good.
terrible. Yeah,
So
humans and animals. It's
exactly,
awful.
I worry about that. Just having that out into the atmosphere, how it's going to affect it. I mean, it can cause heart problems, breathing problems. The way how powerful frequencies can be, and this isn't some
Mm-hmm.
hippy dippy bullshit. This is real.
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. No one wants to live next to one of those.
Oh, for sure. So, immigration, the economy, and cultural issues like women's sports have been central to your platform. What specific actionable reforms do you believe are most urgent now, and why haven't they advanced further under Republican control?
Well, we already talked about the Protect Children's Innocence Act. They have the opportunity to get that done literally anytime they want to. And it's
Hmm.
shocking that they haven't. That one we already discussed. I served as the chair on the Doge subcommittee on oversight,
Hmm.
and healthcare is a really important issue. Republicans, it's been something that we've watched for so many years now. Democrats passed the Affordable Health Care Act that people call Obamacare in 2010.
Uh-huh.
And since it took effect, it has absolutely destroyed the health insurance industry and driven the cost of health care. Well, Republicans constantly campaign and say that they'll do something about Obamacare, but yet they never do anything about Obamacare. And I got in a big fight with Mike Johnson back in the fall of 2025 during the shutdown because I was demanding, hey, we need our Republican plan to fix Obamacare so that the cost of health insurance will go down. We need a lot more freedom with health care. Regulations need to be slashed because you can go to so many foreign countries and you can get treatments, you can buy medications without a prescription, you can get surgeries for 40 to 80% cheaper than you can in the United States. And this is completely unfair to the American people. Well, Republicans have the opportunity right now to fix it, and they're doing absolutely nothing. Josie, you wouldn't believe it. They don't even talk about it. We never had any meetings about how to reform Obamacare or getting rid of it. We never had any prominent discussions in any of our conference meetings about any of this stuff. And so it's once again a total and complete failure that the GOP and the Republican Party misses one of the biggest opportunity to Americans because Americans are going broke. The average family of four pays over around $27,000 a year in health insurance premiums, and then you add on their deductible, which is anywhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a year, and it's just totally unaffordable. And that's why I don't pay for health insurance. I don't have any health insurance right now. It's a risk that I take on myself, but I'm so angry about the entire industry. And thankfully, I'm healthy, and I know something could happen to me, but I choose to take money I would be spending on a premium or spending on health insurance, and I used to spend it in other ways that are good for my health. And that's the choice that I've made. But I continue to remain absolutely disgusted with Republicans for not coming up with a good plan right now to fix this catastrophic problem that we have in America.
Oh, that is such a huge, massive
Mhm.
problem. I pay over $30,000 a year out of pocket for health insurance.
Oh my
30,000,
gosh.
and that is not including my deductibles. That's not including copays. I have a daughter with a rare 1 in a million condition. She's been in remission, but we still need follow-ups on it. So that means she needs an
Oh.
MRI. MRIs aren't covered. I mean, what is this? What am I paying for? My kids are otherwise healthy, and I take them to the doctors, for their annual checkup. So I'm like, I'm paying $30,000 a year for an MRI and an annual checkup for each of my three daughters. And so at this point, I'm like, do we want to risk it? Do we want to risk not having it, and God forbid have something horrific happen? That's you have to live in fear that something is gonna, and that makes you pay $30,000 a year for this, like out of pocket. That's like a low income full time salary that I paid
Yeah.
just in case, And I mean, and then when it came to, I had a health thing come up and I needed an ultrasound for that, and
Hmm.
they're like, okay, well, this is going to be $350 out of pocket for this ultrasound. I'm like, okay, and they're like, because you told us you have health insurance, we have to use it. And she's like, I'm going to tell you, if you happen to not have health insurance in the future, this will cost you $100.
Yeah, see, that's it.
Like, God
Americans
bless
are
this woman
screwed.
for saying this, but just that this is a thing, that this is
Yep.
so horrific in Massachusetts. Like, that $30,000 could go to so much of
Oh my
it.
gosh. Yes.
College for my children, or grad school, or they could go for a
Retirement
trade, they could
or
retire
retirement.
and
Yeah.
get a second little property and build a house on it. And it's just, the amount of money that we put towards that is insane. And I'm really glad that's come up. But Congress is captured.
Mm-hmm.
They push through the bare minimum. They're like, oh, we need a clean FISA bill. That's the most important thing right now. And that pretty much means
That's
that
right.
warrants are dirty. Warrants are dirty because that's what you want to add to it. So no,
Yeah.
clean FISA bill. So that's important, and then it's like just basic funding, just basic level funding, and everything is a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, we can't get basic stuff that people actually need and want and voted for passed.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I'm so sorry for you. That's horrific. And see, that's the type of changes that Congress should be able to make. Is you should be able to go get an MRI, and it shouldn't cost you that much money, or an ultrasound and it shouldn't cost you. You should be able to pay out of pocket instead of paying $30,000 a year. It's so broken, and I'm telling you, that's why I really think if it was organized properly, a third party could totally defeat both Democrat and Republican Party. A third party organized properly that cares about issues like this one, healthcare and health insurance that affects every single American. If that's done well, then I think that would break the two-party system, and it should. It absolutely should.
I agree. I believe, though, it should be a four-party system. I believe it should be a four. I think that the Democrats could easily split into socialist and Democrat, and that'll take votes that way. And then the Republicans could split into like a libertarian independent and keep the Republicans, so they can have their neocons, and then they can have their America First or America Only people. And after reading those comments on that debate that I did, and that tens of thousands of people have watched it, and reading through the comments, my friend Clint Russell read through all the comments on it. He had some time, and he read. There were 1,000 at the time, 1,000 comments, and he read through all of them. 3 of them were in favor of the MAGA side. America First is the future.
Yep.
We've been done with the neocons since, after 9/11. We've been done since they lied us into the Iraq war. We've been done with them, and now they're back. They had a resurgence. But we're done with them.
Yeah, we're done.
No matter calling everybody anti-Semitic or saying, oh, you hate Ukraine, like none of that means anything. They shouldn't be dressing in IDF uniforms and going on the House floor. They shouldn't be waving the Ukraine flag. None of that. None of that is America First. None of that's America Only. None of that makes America great.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm so encouraged to hear that we're only 3 that we're still aligned with the MAGA neocon movement. But I mean, I think our problem is the baby boomers and the silent generation. They're the ones that vote, and it's our younger generations that aren't educated. Well, here's something else I'll add. We don't have enough candidates that are properly funded to get their message out, to get elected, to earn the younger generation's vote. And so I think it's twofold. Number one, younger generations aren't committed voters. Number two, we don't have candidates that are properly funded to get their message out to capture that vote from the younger generation. But that's something we have to develop, and it really needs to be worked on.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. You've spoken about toxic politics and the dangers of heated rhetoric. Having been on the receiving end of it recently, what, if any, responsibility do politicians bear in lowering the temperature? And do you believe that unity between MAGA and America First is possible without compromising any principles at this point?
Okay, so that's one area where I learned a powerful lesson. Is, like I said, I was never involved in politics when I ran for Congress, and I was drinking that Kool-Aid hard and drinking it strong when I ran for Congress. And so I'd come up basically in the Donald Trump school of politics, where I would throw all kinds of attacks and all types of words like he does. I think he has been a huge powerful example, basically teaching many people, and it's been a very bad thing. I think it has been a horrible thing.
Mhm.
Name calling, insulting people, demonizing people, lying about people, and that's the toxic politics. But it also exists from the Democrats too. So I'm not just blaming Donald Trump, but he's been the leader of it, I would say, on the right. The Democrats are just as bad. They lie and will name call too. I think those toxic politics are destroying any opportunity that we have to find common ground and at least have a discussion. And I have totally come around to the point where I'm rejecting toxic politics. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I remain in my lane. My issues are my issues. I can't waver. I'm pro life. I'll never waver on that. I'll never waver on the fact that there's only two genders. Like I
Mhm.
said, that was one of the most important pieces of legislation I had. I love border security. I'm never giving it up. There's certain issues that I just can't waver on. I'm fiscally conservative. That's how I've lived my life and run our construction business all these years. That works. It's principles I believe in. But I do believe that we have to have conversations with other Americans of different viewpoints, and sometimes that means finding common ground. We don't have to give up our things we're passionate about. We don't have to give up. I'm a Christian. I'm never giving up my belief in my Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm never giving up any of that. But I will have a conversation with someone on the left and go, hey, do you think we can work together to stop this data center that's being built? Let's go. Come on, let's go up there and we'll all join together and yell at our city councilmen because they're getting paid off to get this thing built. So that's the areas where I think that we can find common ground. And I think it's important to do that.
I like that the House still doesn't feel captured to me, even though the Senate feels like the nobility to me. It feels like they feel like they're, I mean, aside from a part, Rand Paul and Mike Lee, who are decent human beings, but it really
Yeah.
feels like there's some sort of aristocracy that is within that I can't explain. And I'm not sure. It's just this feeling that I get. So I have one more question for you, and then we're going to jump over to the Q&A with the audience. So if you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of conservative leaders or the voters feeling disillusioned by both parties, what would it be? And why do you believe the country's best days might still be ahead? If you do, I don't want to put words into your mouth.
Yeah. My piece of advice to the younger generation is you're going to have to basically be willing to look at the raw truth, and the raw truth is really bad right now. So I'll disagree with you. The House is captured, and I fully believe that because I serve there. The Senate is captured. Pretty much our entire government is captured and serves a foreign country right now. And that's not just on the federal level, that's on the state level as well. Many of your state governors and your state legislators are also captured, funded by Israel, and will vote for whatever is in Israel's interest versus the state or country's interest. And we have a really big problem. And I think my advice for the younger generations is that you're going to have to swallow that pill in order to figure out how to fix it. And so that's not doesn't sound like great rosy advice, I know, and it might sound a little depressing, but it's the truth. And it's the truth that is going to have to be dealt with. How do you fix it? I don't have an exact blueprint for that to present right now, but that is one that's going to have to be addressed if we are ever going to fix it, because Israel is going to use our military, and they're going to get those things passed in the NDAA. I hate to tell everyone, I've never seen an NDAA fail. Never.
No,
I
you're
haven't
right.
seen it happen. It's going to pass. And most of our House members and our senators are fully funded by AIPAC and other Israel aligned donors. and organizations, and they're going to end up passing that thing. So once Israel's able to use our intelligence and use our military capabilities at their disposal, and have these military contracts, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be almost impossible to undo it. And that's just from the military standpoint. Well, they're unstoppable at that point. And what will they want in the future? Well, they want more war. They're already talking about war with Turkey. They're going to continue to destroy Christian sites, and so it's a major issue. So my advice is be open-eyed and be real about what the problem is.
For sure, and that's some tough love, and we all need to hear it. But what I was saying is, Turkey is a NATO ally, and that is going to be what they're trying to get towards. So they're going to have to find a way to make them bad, to do something to make it break, like make them leave NATO, because NATO is, you can't hurt somebody within NATO, or they have to Article 5. So they have to find a way to get Turkey out of NATO. So we're going to see a lot of attacks on them, I think. And yes, the ugliest stuff in the NDAA, the ugliest stuff that we have passed tends to come through the NDAA. So there's been, that they lifted the domestic dissemination ban on the Propaganda Act. They did that through the NDAA. They have indefinite detention that they did through the NDAA. It's all stuff that just violates our deepest principles as Americans that come through the NDAA.
Which is why I always voted no to the NDAA. Support the military, but I don't support those nasty things.
Well, that's how they get things through. Oh, so you don't support so you don't support the military, is what you're telling me. That's how they get
this. Dirtiest trick there is.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right, Olivia, you got some questions from the audience for me?
I do. So first, from Michael Leo, he says, we have watched the left grow over the years, becoming more steadfast in their policy positions like abortion, trans stuff, pride, and universal basic health care. We have watched them grow into a cult, like minority who will exile and attempt to cancel even their own over the slightest differences of opinions. How is this any different than the MAGA sycophants who blatantly lied to primary Massie, who have also targeted you, who target objectively America First politicians? Where do you predict the MAGA movement lands after the Trump administration? Does it fracture or does it maintain?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's no different at all from the left. Actually, I think it's dirtier on the right. I don't predict a future for MAGA after the Trump administration. I think they have infuriated so many of us that are America First or America Only, and the coalitions like MAHA and others that came in and got the president elected. So I don't see a future for them, but there's a nasty underworld under the top leaders that many people take for granted or really aren't aware of, and that's the political consulting class that has supported much of this. So your political consultants are really, really, really dirty. And they will pay all types of influencers. They will run all types of ads. They will disseminate lies within the media. They have media friends they work with to plant stories. And so they are supported. You got to understand, many of them are also lobbyists who work with the top industries like the military industrial complex, big pharma, and many others that maintain the status quo in Washington, D.C. So it's not just once President Trump leaves office and who comes behind him, but it's also understanding that whole, I call it the political industrial complex. It's understanding the political industrial complex that really keeps things moving forward, no matter how much support is lost with the American people.
Great answer.
Thank you. All right. Our next question is from Stork. It says there's a long list of problems at the local, county, state, and federal levels over the past few years where the executive branch has failed to enforce laws. Why do you think legislatures, counties, and cities ignore these problems without doing something to help the citizens force them to act in the pursuit of justice? When are the legislatures going to step up and reform the judicial and executive branches? or do you think they will continue to enjoy the game of not it when pressed?
Yeah, I think they're going to continue to enjoy the game. It's kind of a mixed bag there at state legislature level. I know, like here in Georgia, a lot of our elected state legislators, they're just not paid a lot of money. So they're representing their state house or Senate district, and they are paid such a low salary that they can't even make it a full-time job, and they don't have a big staff to help them do the work that they should be getting done. So many of them are working a full-time job and then doing their service for their House district or their Senate district kind of as a side job, but is a much bigger responsibility. So I'm not giving them a pass. I'm just explaining there's nuances there that are hard to understand. But there's also a lot of corruption at the state and local, like county level. It's easy for these city councilmen or county commissioners or a state legislature to get large donations or get kickbacks or maybe their land gets sold for something big like a data center. It's easy for them to get paid like that, where it neutralizes them and they'll never do anything to really fix the issues. So there's different reasons across the board, but it will continue to be a problem. So unfortunately, I hate to sound like a negative Nancy. I'm just being honest. It's really hard to get them to fix those issues.
All right, perfect. And we have one more written out, but I may throw one extra in there if we have time. This is from Thinker for Life. He says, in my opinion, corrupt judges and Congress people and the fake news media has forced Trump to walk the tightrope he is walking now. Do you think a similar uprising to what's happening in Ireland is where we are heading? Because in the member's opinion, Trump cannot do anything.
I'll actually say, knowing the president and knowing everyone serving in the administration and having served in Congress, no one's making President Trump do anything. He's a pretty hard guy to make do anything. I can give the Epstein files as a perfect example. When he doesn't want to do something, he's not going to do it. So the president that you're seeing right now is literally the man that he is, and he is responsible for his decisions. Does that mean he's lacking information in certain areas? Yeah, I think his team doesn't give him information at times. I think they maybe present him with information that sways his opinion in certain directions. But no, I think a lot of responsibility falls on his shoulders. Where we're going in the future as far as a revolution like in Ireland, I don't know. And that's really up to the American people. I'll put it like this. A lot of times I'll meet a man and he'll be a tough guy and, he'll say, I have this huge gun collection and if it's ever time, I'm going to step up and fight. And I always look at him and I go, look at the guy. And I usually see a man that's pretty comfortable in his life, making a lot of money with a really nice truck or a really nice house. And it's pretty easy for me to deduce and say, a lot of people talk real tough, but I don't really see anybody risking their life, liberty, and their fortune to jump out there and fix things. And I think the government did a really good job of setting people straight on January 6th as to what will happen to you. And I'll say that could happen under a Republican or Democrat administration. So at this time when people are making money, pretty comfortable in their lives, I don't see many Americans really willing to shake that tree of liberty to make things right.
All right, perfect. And I have one from our live chat here that I'm going to take.
Sure.
Taylor is wondering, what are your future ambitions? Are they political? Where are you going from here?
Right. So I've never had ambitions. I only ran for Congress because I felt like we needed regular people in there to actually do things right and I wanted to hold my own party accountable, the Republican Party. That was really a big part of my mission in Congress. I don't know what the future holds for me. I think it's hard for anybody to say that about themselves. So I don't really know that I have any so-called ambitions. I'm just going to continue pushing forward for America and what's good for Americans.
Yes. And I love what you said about, I think that ordinary people should be in there. You're right. That's how our country was built. There were lawyers and farmers, and I mean, they take time off because it'd be time to harvest the crops, you know, like,
Yeah.
so there's very ordinary people in there. A really
Yep.
interesting, you also said, you know, kind of willing to kind of risk it all. But uh, the one of the most interesting things about the Constitution to me is something that's very little known, or the Declaration of Independence. Sorry, not the Constitution. One of the signers was Charles Carroll, and he signed it Charles Carroll of Carrollton. And this is because he put where he lived on there. And so he was the richest man, and he was in Maryland. He was a Catholic, and there was a lot of oppression that was happening there at that time. But he actually said, like, here, this is where I live. Come at me. I mean, and that was just so fearless to me to do that. Just all of, you know, life, liberty, sacred honor, fortunes. Those are the stuff that they wrote down, that they risked, and a lot of them lost everything. And that's the kind of stuff we have to be prepared for if there is some kind of a revolution that unfolds at some point. But I don't know. But I do.
I don't think we're there yet.
Yes. Yeah, I don't either. And we've seen, you know, with 2020, we've seen riots happen. We've seen that stuff explode, and it's never turned into anything more than just demoralization.
That's right.
Yeah. I do want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for joining me today. Can people follow you somewhere, support you somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. All my social media is a great place to follow me. And I've just launched a new series called Life with MTG. So you can watch for that there. It's on my YouTube and all my social media. So thank you so much for that, Josie.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here today. I believe this show is going to go live on Saturday, and you'll be able to watch it across all streaming platforms. The Josie Show, Timcast Media, follow it everywhere you get shows. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless you, and stay free.